Today I'm going to share a little story, sort of funny, but very serious in another respect, about how the mind works, NLP and communication, and the power of the mind, the power of communication. Very important to me. I used to work with people with dementia in two areas. I worked in care homes, doing activities with people, stimulating minds, keeping them amused, taking care of them, distracting them from the problems that they had. The other one was life story work, where people with dementia, you get to know them through their life story, through the photographs, through their experiences, and carers can adapt, whether in hospital or a care home, and families, to their memories, their responses, their fears, because it's a very scary place to be. Your mind sees something, your eyes see something, the emotions inside are conflicted. You don't know where you are in the world. You've lost touch. We might be in 2017, they might be in 1917. You don't know where they are. And that's the scary bit. They could be 20, they could be 30, they could be 50, when really, in age terms, they're 80 or 90. And that's a really scary place to be. I met one lady who was back when she was 14. She left home. She had an exciting time working on the stage. And I didn't understand it back then, but as I got older, I got more experienced, I got more professional experience and learning. I worked with them as an older person. I had much more appreciation of what they were going through and how that works for them. But this story is, I used to work in a care home. They had a little dog called Pippi, and she belonged to one of the residents who actually had to be hospitalised, so she ended up living there. So I adopted her a little bit. I used to take her for walks at lunchtime and after work when I could. I used to play games and include her in everything, and I found that it really worked well with the residents. So we used to play things. We used to throw a ball for her. She'd fetch it to them or to me. She'd have antics. We'd fight over toys and things like that. And they loved it. They absolutely loved it. So we used to do that once a day. I had to leave that job. I left. I went back 3 weeks later when I got the chance to go and visit people. I walked in, and those people who can't remember the families, they can't remember their own children, they can't remember parts of their life, or even the person they sit next to day after day, the food they've just eaten or the lunch, they can't remember any of that. And I walked in after 3 weeks and they went, "Hello, how are you? Where's your little dog?" And they looked around for her. Other people sat forward and shouted, "Pippi!" How amazing is that? People remembered that because of the emotional connection, because of the fun they'd had, because we made it into something we reinforced every day. So the power of the mind, they reach back to recent memories really, which is very unusual with dementia, that they can't retain that, to something that was familiar to them. And they leaned forward and looked for the dog. I'd call her, she came in and she went, "Oh, have we got the ball?" So they remembered those sort of things because of the emotional, personal, fun connection they had. And that was powerful. Another story, I worked with an ex-mayor of Oldham on the Life Story project. Meeting her for the first time as I was a coordinator, and I got to know them, introduce the idea, got their consent as far as I could, and helped them to understand, even with dementia. Already spoken to the families, the carers, so they knew who I was and what I was doing. But this one lady had some old, really old photographs, the sepia ones, on the side. So I picked them up, started chatting. She was telling me stories about them and who they were. While I was there chatting, her son walked in with his wife, and he looked at me and he just went, "We don't know who they are. She can't remember now. We've lost that opportunity." I went, "Oh, she's telling me all about them now. She's telling me who they are, their stories." And we're talking about it. I said, "Quick, get a pen and write down on the back what she tells you, who they are." And he did. And he carried on that conversation. He had a connection with his mum that he'd lost for weeks or months. And they found out who those people were. And sadly, she died only a few weeks later. We never actually got to finish her life story book and pass it on to her and the care home and her family. We did pass it on to the family, we finished it as much as we could, but he never forgot that. Again, the emotional connection. He invited me to a funeral, to the wake. We went along, we had a chat about it. He was so grateful for those last few memories that he had and that he could keep from the photographs. And he's got a family history now that he didn't know he had before. Because you get to a certain age and you realise the importance of that, and it helps you to find out where you belong, especially when you lose a parent, because they help you to anchor you to your life. But those are two powerful stories about how the mind works, how interaction works, how emotion connects the mind, how communication can influence that. And that's the key bit to creating personal power, managing your environment, manipulating your environment, if you like, influencing people, and the power of the mind. So bear that in mind and keep learning.